everybody. This is Eve West. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to promoting a book I wrote. It's called Follow. It's an ebook. You can find it on Amazon.com under the Kindles tab. And my book deals with spirituality, looking at it not just from a purely psychological point of view, but also an earthly. And typically when we think of us as human beings, we think of, the conceptual aspect of who we are. Such as love and caring and creativity and intuition and so forth. But really, we're not just psychological or so-called spiritual, we're also earthly. And so this pertains to the reptilian brain, in which you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. And, I focus on very controversial topics, if you will, like sex, money, race, and so forth. Things that we're taught, we're really shunned for discussing when it comes to spirituality. And so as an ego, many people don't feel comfortable talking about these things, and we're programmed not to really delve into them, because when we get into the occult meaning behind sex, or the occult meaning behind race and money, we really see that there's a lot of ugliness there, if you will, in terms of how the creators of our reality, how they use these different aspects of who we are, the physical aspects of who we are, against us. And so guys, I really apologize if my energy is really low in this particular video. I just had a very strenuous day, if you will. My energy was taken away during a gang stalking incident where I was out taping earlier, and I got gang stalked and told to be quiet. I was told that I was being loud, and that I'm outside the library, and the branch manager told me that that her employees couldn't have a good lunch because of how loud I was. And I have video footage that shows you how loud I was being when I was doing my taping. And so she told me that she didn't want me taping, if you will, on my phone. And I told her that, taping on my phone is like FaceTiming somebody on the phone or talking on the phone. Like I'm talking to you now. That's how I was taping earlier today outside the library. But she, she started saying that, I was too loud. But really, it doesn't have anything to do with what I was doing. It's just the fact that I talk a lot about very occult information. And so, when you start to vibrate differently in the matrix, and you start to vibrate higher, and you're acquiring a lot of knowledge, you start to become a divergent, and people really seek to demonize you for no reason. And so this is one of the more blatant gang stalking tactics, because normally gang stalking just looks like everyday things. It's very difficult to prove. Okay, it's very difficult to prove gang stalking, and the reason why it's so covert is because it's made to make it out like that person is mentally ill, or it's made to be so covert that you're harassing a person, but it doesn't look like that on the surface. And so that person acts out in a very irrational way, which lands them into jail. And so they try to justify or facilitate an environment to incarcerate you, pretty much. And so, so that makes gang stalking very difficult to prove. However, today was one of the more blatant examples I have footage of on my channel. So go check that out. If you haven't already, it's called Gang Stalking Incident or Explanation and Actual Footage 8, I believe. I think it's 8. It might be 7, but I think it's actual 8. And so, but anyway, like I said, my energy is a little bit low, but I really do need a lot of energy for this video, because it deals with a lot of, I guess you would say, specific examples and a lot of details, the devil's in the details, pretty much. Because, one of the videos that I did, I was told that it was not a good video. That it was judgmental or unfairly judgmental. And so I wanted to redo the video. I want to redo the video to actually explain the judgments that I made within the video. Because one thing about it, when you're making an argument, and your argument is just full of judgments, then it really doesn't hold water. You know what I mean? And so when I was a teacher, I taught my kids this, you know, when we were having academic conversations. You know, I always told my kids, if you made a judgment and, you know, you really don't have anything to back it up, then, you know, you just look like you're just throwing off. And so what I want to do is to go back and revisit a lot of things that I said in that video. And I want to really put a schema, if you will, a mental schema in terms of how I computed in my mind the judgments that I made. Because one thing about the hell realm, this is hell, that's why we say hello. And the hell realm is all about the what? It's all about judgment. But you have to reach a higher taxonomy of knowledge in order to understand the judgments at the atomic level. So it really, you know, everything at the atomic level is set. But we need to ascend so we can, I guess in a way, not fall victim psychologically to the atomic level. You know, the makers of our world set it up to where it looks like karma. That's why they're called the lords of karma. Karma is cause and effect. So they want you to think because of this, this is why this happens. You know, that's just the way it's set up. But everything is set up according to the Akashic record, or the book of life mentioned in the book of Revelation. It's all your thoughts, actions, and emotions pretty much are all laid out for you before you even get here. That's what your DNA is. You know, it's your blueprint. And so everything that you're going to go through in this life is already predetermined. Like, for example, you know, my programming is Christian, and the church that I grew up in is called Zion. It's called Zion, all of it. And so I thought to myself, that's an interesting name. You know, why was it called Zion, all of it? And so Zion, from an occult standpoint, means home. And all of it translates to the word all, of, and it. So ALLOF, and then IT. And so the all of it represents home, which is the pineal gland. And so it was the intention of the God of this world to take my whole pineal gland, to take all of it. So Zion, all of it. That was the intention before coming into this reality and to physicality, is to take my pineal gland to make me, instead of a 6-pointed star, which is a Jew, to make me a 5-pointed star, which is a reptilian, which is someone who can only see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. So basically to take away my divinity. And so to find this out and having access to my Akashic record is very disheartening, and it's sick and it's sadistic. But you know, when you start to vibrate higher, you get wind of these different things, and you get an understanding of you know, what your higher self intended for you. And when you come to find out that the higher self is not what the New Age is making it out to be, the higher self is not anything, you know, is the higher self is represented by the unconscious mind, the mind that you don't know, the masculine aspect of yourself. And so the higher self is glorified as something positive, but the higher self is not positive. At least my higher self is not. Because I've been reincarnated so many times, you know, my higher self is very masculine, very menacing, and very evil. So the ego that's talking in front of you right now is more angelic. I'm like sweet, you know? You know, my ego is very much like, I wouldn't say Pollyanna-ish, but my ego is very like, I don't know, good, you know, good, pious, righteous, or what have you. But on the astral realm at night, I'm very dark, a very dark and menacing and evil being. And so that's really not my choice, if you will, because whenever you descend into this reality, you descend as a slave. And so it doesn't matter whether you're playing the good part of the checkerboard floor or the bad part of the checkerboard floor of Freemasonry, you're made into who you are, and you can't really take responsibility for any aspect of duality that you are playing. And so I want to really, to be honest with you, destroy this good ego that I have. You know, on my channel I talk about, I don't know, I don't really talk about peace and love like that, but you know, on my channel I talk about you know, justice, right? Justice and fairness and stuff like that. And so although I'm very just and fair as an ego, I am very unjust and unfair as a astral self or a higher self on the astral realm, or what I would consider to be a I would consider just to be an unconscious aspect of myself. And so, it's very interesting because I really don't identify very much with this unconscious aspect of me. Like, if I were sitting and talking to the unconscious aspect of my mind, I would probably be totally shocked, because that aspect of me has been purposely hidden from view. And also too, like I said, there's been so many different altered personalities with MK Ultra, as they call it, or mind control, that have split my consciousness so many times that it really doesn't make any logical sense in terms of why this was intentionally done to me and meticulously done to destroy my consciousness. It makes no common sense to me, and so I'm really totally drained in terms of trying to justify, because when you're going through so much mind torture and gang stalking and stuff like that, because the torture is so great, your mind automatically tries to justify and convict you, and say, oh, I'm going through this because I did something wrong or whatever. There's something that I can do. But really, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the one that governs this reality. And so the people that govern this reality are sickos. They're sickos. And they glorify in debauchery. That's why they call, in the movie Eyes Wide Shut, which if you haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut and you have an open third eye, I strongly suggest that you see it, because Eyes Wide Shut really deals with the elite who govern our reality and Satanism. And when you look at the satanic ritual, the satanic ritual that they have, that Tom Cruise goes to, and his friend Nick Nightingale. When Nick Nightingale is playing at this satanic ceremony, this, thing that they're having where they're conjuring up demons pretty much, they're playing a song and it's called Backwards Priest. That's what it's called, Backwards Priest. And so the gods of this world are backwards priests. They're very inverted. They're very sick. And they glorify in debauchery, if you will. And so I really want to shed some light on what I would say psychological splitting. I know the title of my of my video is Better Than Sex, but or I don't know, maybe I'll name it something else. Maybe it won't be Better Than Sex, but it'll be something that'll grab your attention, because just like the movie Eyes Wide Shut, when I first saw Eyes Wide Shut, I was like, oh, this is one of the movies that you can see some good sex in or something. I was like, oh, this is like a sex movie. And then when you see Eyes Wide Shut, you really see that, what you're looking at doesn't really have very much to do with sex per se. It does, but it doesn't. It has so much more meaning behind it. And so, I want to name this video something that really grabs your attention, because I know otherwise you wouldn't probably delve into it as much. So, it doesn't really have anything to do with sex so much, as it does have to do with the foundation for why we have sex, or the foundation for why we have race, or the foundation for why we have money and that type of thing. The foundation for our physical existence. And so really it has to do with splitting, with mind splitting. And so when I started to wake up in the matrix, there's a spiritual doctrine, it's called spiritual psychology, that was proposed to me, and it's called A Course in Miracles. And when I did A Course in Miracles, I literally went insane. I will be honest with you. After doing A Course in Miracles, I literally went insane. And it's funny because I looked up the rating for A Course in Miracles, and it had like 93% or something. I can't remember what website. But it had 93% of people advocated A Course in Miracles. And I thought, that's interesting. Excuse me. So, and looking at that, it was very disheartening, because I had a nervous breakdown. I had a nervous breakdown from doing A Course in Miracles. And really, you're going to understand why after this video, why I actually had a nervous breakdown after doing A Course in Miracles. Because A Course in Miracles, like other constructs of the Matrix, is designed. It is designed to split the mind. It is designed to split the mind, cause psychological splits. Whenever you're splitting the mind, you're making the consciousness very unstable. And so this leads you to crucifixion, if you will. Because really, Christ is supposed to join the mind together. So when you think of Christ, think of the totality of who you are, not just spiritual, but also earthly. And so you're supposed to join the spirit and the earth together as one, or as what you would call a Jew, okay? Because the Jew has the intersecting triangles of the masculine and the feminine. So I don't want you to think of a Jew in terms of race. I know we think of Jews in terms of race and religion. I really want you to kind of get those preconceived aspects of what a Jew is out of your head. From an esoteric, occult standpoint, a Jew is just a holy being. That's it. Someone who can manifest their desires. So someone who can take the metaphysics and ground it into the physical. That is a Jew. That is someone who has control of their solar plexus. You can manifest. So when you are a Christian, you have to go to an outside entity to get anything that you need or want. You have to go to God. Jews are gods. So think of a Jew as a god in an esoteric or occult standpoint. Like, for example, you know, when you are I guess you would say Christian, you have to go to work, right? You know, you have to go to work to get money, and then money gives you food, shelter, and so forth. As a Jew, having both the spiritual and the physical aspect of yourself intact, you do not work a job. You do not work a job. You can manifest at will. So if you want some food, you have food. If you want some shelter, if you want a mansion, you can have a mansion. If you want a shack, you can have a shack. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want, whatever type of duality that you want to experience, you have the ability. If you have the ability to think it, then you have the ability to ground it into desire. Ground your desires into physicality. But most of us are not magicians, and we cannot do that, or at least we haven't realized our divinity. And so since we haven't realized our divinity, you cannot ground. You have to go to work a job. You have to, you know, like, say for example, even to copulate, right? Sex. So, you know, to have sex with someone, you know, you feel the urge to copulate. You may go to the bar, you know, try to pick someone up and take them to dinner or something like that. Or, I don't know, you may, I don't know, try to find manipulative ways, wine and dine someone, say nice things to people, manipulate them, right? to have sex with them. But when you have control of your spiritual and your earthly, you don't have to work with manipulation to do things. You are holy. And so you can manifest what you want, whether that be a lover or, you know, some type of material possession, at will. You actually, your will is in your hands, so you have free will. But when you are unholy, you don't have free will. You have to go to someone to get the things that you would need and want. So this is the difference between being a Jew and being unholy, if you will, being only one aspect of yourself. And so the thing is, like I said, to be a Christ or to be a Jew is to integrate the left and the right brain, whereas Satan, which is this construct, disintegrates the left and the right brain. So it actually breaks apart the left and the right brain, but Christ integrates the left and the right brain. And so when you think of disintegrating the left and right brain, I want you to think of all the constructs of the matrix. I want you to think of religion. I want you to think of media entertainment. I want you to think of education. I want you to think of the familial structure. I want you to think of the government structure. Everything within the matrix is designed to take you, the left and the right brain, away. The Christ, which is your pineal gland, all right, is designed to integrate everything back. And because the pineal gland gives you the truth, or what have you. And so it really is designed to put you back together to where you gain the masculine aspect of yourself. So this is where you get the word member or remember. When a member is a penis, right? A penis represents the phallus. It represents the masculine aspect of yourself. And so when you remember, you get your penis back, because they take your penis when you come here. I know that sounds a little interesting. And this kind of sort of goes to sex, right? So you're born with a penis, but they chop it off and then they throw it out. This is, in a way, from an occult standpoint, called circumcision, really. They circumcise the masculine aspect of you, so you don't have your will. Your will is taken away. You're in a prison system. So if you have a will to have, like, you know, $100,000 car, you know, you can't manifest that. Your will, your ability to ground your desires is taken away. So because they wipe you of the knowledge to be able to do that, you are dismembered. Your penis is taken off, okay? Now, as you are ascending in knowledge, your penis is being put back together. So you're getting your masculine aspect of yourself back. And so, like I said, the various constructs of the matrix are designed to take the penis away, or dismember you, to take away your masculine kundalini, as they call it, your soul, take your soul away. And so A Course in Miracles, in particular, was something that was really designed just to really take my soul, you know, away. And I know people are going to be like, oh my gosh, like, you know, A Course in Miracles is the best thing since sliced bread to me. And some people consider A Course in Miracles to be religious, or, you know, they identify with it as a religion and so forth. And I respect that, you know. You know, in fact, if you do A Course in Miracles, I strongly suggest that you comment, or I ask, I should say, that you, you know, I strongly suggest that you comment on this video, because I would really like you to explain a lot of the things that I'm going to point out here about A Course in Miracles, and how I was dismembered, and how by being dismembered and separating my left and my right brain with this doctrine, how I was put into a nervous breakdown and really almost institutionalized, actually, after doing this doctrine, and you're going to see why. But A Course in Miracles is just like any other construct of the matrix, except for me, it was much more insidious, because you know, other constructs of the matrix split your mind. You're told gluttony is bad, but they push gluttony in your face. You're told wrath and violence is bad, but violence is always in your face. You're always told that lust is bad, but lust is always in your face. You know, you're told envy is bad, but there's so many different things put in your face for you to envy. And so this creates two yous, a psychological split, a conscious ego and an unconscious astral self that wants these things, that you don't have the sacral capacity to ground into physical reality, okay? And so, you know, it creates two yous, and really people think that they make choices in the matrix, but you really don't make any choices here, when you think of it from an occult standpoint. You know, it's kind of like when they used to have little sitcoms, and you're sitting there, and so you have a God on one shoulder and then the devil. And so they're like, well, you know, you have free will. You know, you've got free will, you got God, and you got the devil there. And so you can decide. You can decide if you want to follow God or the angel, or you want to follow the devil, right? Which is the demon or what have you. And so it's you making the choice. But that's not true. That's not true. No one can make a choice here unless you are conscious, unless you have knowledge. If you don't have knowledge, then you can't make a choice. Just like when I talk about gang stalking in my home. You know, my mom told me to come back home. And, you know, I decided to come back. And so now that I'm back with her, I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because I didn't make a conscious choice. If I had known that my mother would mistreat me, I would never have come back here. I was really in the dark. My pineal gland did not tell me, or did not foreshadow, guess what? Your mom is, you know, going to be gang stalking you. You're going to be gang stalked within your dwelling. If I had known that, why would I come back here? I passed up, I think it was like $58,000. It was like $58,000 salary in Atlanta to come back here. And some people are like, what? You passed up, yeah, I passed up $58,000 to, come down to, here in Charleston, because I was like, I want to mend my relationship with my mom, and we're doing much better, and I want to transition out of teaching. And I said to myself, well, things are much better, I think, with my family. And so, trying to really, get a good relationship together. And, my parents are older now, and I could help out and stuff like that. And I felt it would be good for everyone, right? And then when I found out that, my mom would tell me that, it's my choice to let my that I made a choice to let my sexual abuse affect me. When my mom, didn't show any empathy towards me when I told her that my therapist made a pass at me and sexually harassed me during one of my sessions. When my mom told me that, I couldn't use the stove after 6, although she uses it. And, and then after that, said, well, you can't use it at all unless I'm sitting here and watching you. My mom said, you can't use the oven, during at night. And then so you can't use it during the day. And she said, you can only use it in the morning. Or if my mom said, you know what, I don't want you to have a hot shower. Do you think I would have made a conscious decision? No one would make a conscious decision to give up their, I guess you would say, freedom to be in bondage. Nobody would do that. Nobody would do that. When you are conscious and when you have knowledge, you can make a sound decision. You can say, you know what, I'm going to stay here in Atlanta, be closer to my daughter, make more money, have my livelihood here. Because that's much better than going back to stay with my parents and having no livelihood and, getting my car totaled. I didn't get my car totaled, but my car got totaled. I got into a car accident. What is it? And have all these restrictions that there are no real rationales for having, really. So, in saying this, I want you to know that knowledge is power, and when you don't have knowledge, then you are a slave. And so when you are a slave, you don't have, I guess that you would say, power. You don't have power. And so these various tactics, if you will, within the matrix environment are designed to take away your power, including with me. A Course in Miracles was designed to take away my mental power. Media and entertainment, religion, all these things took away my mental power, and instead of integrating me through Christ, it disintegrated me and it separated me into the ego and the unconscious astral self, or what you would call a wishful mind. And so all you're doing here as an ego is wishing. I wish I could do this, I wish I could do that. And so you can't really have it until you go to the astral realm at night. But the whole purpose is to ground those wishes into physicality, so you actually get out of the reincarnation system. You'll keep coming back here because you're like, man, I really wanted to save the world or something like that, as a physical ego. And so because that's in your mind and that's archon energy that's driving you, you come back to do that. So let's talk about A Course in Miracles and how it actually disintegrates the mind, just like other aspects of the matrix. Let's look at one of the lessons. Let's look at the first lesson of A Course in Miracles, right? Because I don't want to make a judgment against A Course in Miracles, and without having any explanation for the judgment that I made towards the doctrine, right? And people make judgments about Course in Miracles all the time. You can go write a review online about A Course in Miracles. So let's look at the first lesson. It says, nothing I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place means anything. And then it says, now look slowly around you and practice applying this idea very specifically to whatever you see. This is the first lesson of A Course in Miracles. This table does not mean anything. This chair does not mean anything. This hand does not mean anything. This foot does not mean anything. This pen does not mean anything. Then look farther away from your immediate area and apply the idea to a wider range. Listen now. That door does not mean anything. That body does not mean anything. That lamp does not mean anything. That sign does not mean anything. That shadow does not mean anything. Okay? Now, and looking at this, right, this lesson, again, I'm going to repeat the whole focus of the lesson again. Nothing I see in this room, on this street, from this window, in this place means anything. This is teaching you dissociation. When you think about mind splitting, think of dissociative disorders. When you think of MK Ultra and you think of Monarch programming, think of dissociative disorders, mind splits. This is teaching you to dissociate from reality. Now imagine if I went into a psychiatric ward or something like that, and I said, this table doesn't mean anything. This chair doesn't mean anything. This hand doesn't mean anything. This foot, this pen, right? This door, this body, right? Someone else's body doesn't mean anything. And think about that. You're telling me in this doctrine, this body doesn't mean anything. So if someone goes and shoots someone that's doing this doctrine, you know what they have in their mind? That body doesn't mean anything, so it doesn't matter. So if a person goes and damages someone else's body, physically assaults them or kills them, and they say, well, I did A Course in Miracles, it says that body doesn't mean anything, and this is a doctrine that's fed into their consciousness, this is dissociating. This is dissociative. This doctrine is separating you from the physical world. But if you do something that shows that that door doesn't mean anything. So if I go into, say, the library, right? Okay? And I kick down the door. Let's say if that's something, you know, I'm just saying hypotheticals here. So hypothetically, if I kick down the door, the doctrine says that door does not mean anything. So, but if I kick down the door, would I be arrested? Let's think about that. That sign does not mean anything. This is a part of lesson 1 of A Course in Miracles. So say I'm driving down the street and there's a stop sign, or not even a stop sign. Let's say there, yeah, well, a stop sign, a red light or whatever. But let's say a stop sign, actual sign. And I'm doing A Course in Miracles and I just did lesson 1. It says that sign doesn't mean anything. And I go straight through the sign and there's a car coming. Come on now. Let's think about this. You Course people out there, they love A Course in Miracles. I really want you to really explain these things to me because I really need some help. So anywho, you know, if I run a stop sign, is there a possibility that I would get into a car accident? But it just says this sign does not mean anything. So when you look at this lesson from A Course in Miracles, it's teaching you to dissociate. It's teaching you dissociation. And when you can actually make someone dissociate, you can make them do anything you want. Like a master race. Like a master race. Like a master. You know, you're a beta slave. When you think about mind splitting, think about a beta slave. You know, think about someone who has dissociated from their core personality into multiple personalities. And the way that you actually create multiple alters within a person's personality is to get them to dissociate from reality. Lesson 1 of A Course in Miracles is teaching you to dissociate from reality. And when you dissociate from reality, you will have consequences at the physical level for that reality. And so really, I was definitely dissociating. I was very much dissociative and doing A Course in Miracles. And let me just explain to you how dissociative I was, because it really teaches you in A Course in Miracles that, you know, everything pretty much at the atomic level is like your fault, basically. Like you created this dream or something like that, and so it's your fault. So what I would start to do with A Course in Miracles, this is really bat crazy, I was going around thanking people for things that they did to me that were wrong, like my ex-husband. You know, my ex-husband would cheat on me all the time, right? So I was like, oh, I wanted to experience someone cheating on me and really feel the pain of what that was like. And so I really got to the point where I was like, you know what? Thank you so much for cheating on me, because that's what I wanted to experience. I wanted to experience that pain and suffering, because I made this dream. I sinned against God. This is really what A Course in Miracles is teaching you. Now, you made this up. This is you. Why would I want to experience someone cheating on me? That makes sense, right? No, it doesn't. Help me to understand this. Mind splitting, Monarch programming. And the Course in Miracles is just like all other Monarch programming devices. You want to talk about mind splits? Let's look at the Bible. Matthew 10:34-36 reads, "Do not think that I came to bring peace on earth." This is Jesus speaking. "Do not think I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I came to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be the members of his household." So in this, particular verse right here, this is Matthew 10:34-36. If you want to go back and read it, because hearing and reading are two different things. Believe me, I speak from personal experience. But here, Jesus is not talking about peace. He's like, I didn't come here for peace. I came here for a sword. Justice. What do you do with the sword? That's war, right? All right. Well, let's look at Isaiah 9:6 and see what it says about that. "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." The Prince of Peace. That is Isaiah 9:6. But I just said in Matthew 10:34-36 that it says, "Do not think that I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword." So why is it in Matthew saying that I didn't come here to bring peace, but in Isaiah 9:6 it says he's the Prince of Peace? Wouldn't you consider that to be a contradiction? The Bible, which is actually compiled, one version is compiled by a monarch, Monarch programming, King James of Scotland, who was a king, who was a monarch. Mind splitting, feeding contradictions into the mind. But let's keep going, right? Because as Christ beings or holy beings, we're considered crazy. So let's look at the reason why we are, okay? Let's look at the reason why we're considered crazy. Because see, I want to reach a higher taxonomy of knowledge tonight. I want to see who's going to be brave enough, right? Let's see if we have any brave Christians, and let's what we say, A Course in Miracles goers and so forth, who are going to explain this to me. I really do want you to explain this to me so I can, because you know what? If I were crazy, it would make me feel better. If I weren't really going through this stuff with you right now, it would make me feel better. But let's keep going. Let's look at some more psychological splits. here. 1 John 2:15, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. That's 1 John 2:15. And then it says John 3:16 reads, for God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Why does 1 John 2:15 say, don't love anything in the world, because if you do, then you don't have the love of the Father? But it says that God so loved the world in John 3:16 that he gave his only Son. So he must have really loved it, right? If you give your only Son, don't you really love the world? I would think so. Like if I had like only one son, you know, my only son, I would sacrifice him for the world. That must really mean that I love the world, right? But it says, you know, don't love the world, you don't have the love of the Father in you. Who can explain that contradiction to me? I would really like you to comment below and justify why I have a contradictory mind, why I have a split mind, and why I'm considered to be crazy. Let's keep going. All right, let's look at Ephesians 6:5. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. However, Matthew 6:24 reads, no man can obey two masters. You just said in Ephesians 6:5 that you should obey your earthly masters, right? Just like you would Christ. So the earthly and the spiritual, obey them the same, right? Just as you would obey Christ, right? So they're equal. But then you're saying nobody can obey two masters. Well, which one is it? Can somebody explain that psychological split to me? For us so-called crazy truthers out there? Let's see how many comments I'm going to get on this. Now listen now, I understand that we like to comment on superficial things such as how I say things, or, you know, the way I look, or what have you. But let's get into the actual content in this one, because I know there are going to be trolls out there that says, oh, da, 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 da. I understand that. In fact, everything is fair game to me. I feel that you can comment on anything. However, let's focus on the totality of everything. So if you're going to comment on, you know, how I say things or what I look like or what have you, go ahead and do it. However, the actual information that I'm giving here, the actual contradictions, I would like you to comment on those things as well. And if you don't, then that really says something about the world that I'm in. That's why we say hello, because this is hell. All right, so let's look at Luke 14:26, another psychological split. If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, ye, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. All right, so you got to hate everybody to be Jesus' disciple. And Luke 14:26. Now, in 1 John 3:15 it reads, whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer, and ye know that no murderer hath eternal life abiding in him. You just said that in Luke 14:26 that I can't be your disciple. I can't be Jesus' disciple without hating my brother. It says brethren, let alone everybody else in the family. But 1 John 3:15 says that if I hate my brother, I'm a murderer. And I don't have eternal life within me. Interesting. Can somebody explain that contradiction? I would like you to really explain that. But I don't think I'm going to get any comments about it, but maybe I will luck up and get some. So let's look at Romans 8:8. It says, so then they that are in the flesh cannot please God, right? So if you're in the flesh, you can't please God, right? The flesh is weak. However, Matthew 5, it says, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. So why did you say in Romans 8:8 that, you know, you can't please God in the body, you can't please him in the flesh, yet in Matthew 5 say that you have to be perfect just as your Father is perfect? How can I be perfect when I'm in the flesh? You just said I can't be perfect in the flesh. Can you explain that contradiction? There's so many of them. It's disgusting. There's so many disgusting contradictions that I cannot even fathom why. It's disgusting to find out that there's so many contradictions and I don't even know why there is. No one has the courage to explain this to me. That is what's disgusting. It's not the scriptures themselves. What is disgusting is that in this world, within this world, you do not have the courage to tell me why there are these contradictions. That is what's disgusting. John 3:17. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Okay, so God sent his Son not to condemn it. In other words, not to judge the world. However, it says in John 5:22, for the Father judges no man, but hath committed all judgment unto the Son. No, you said that in John 3:17 that the Son is not here to judge the world. And I looked up condemn, or to condemn the world, not world, and I looked up the word condemn, right? And condemn means to disapprove of strongly. I think it said to pass an adverse judgment on. I want to say, I made a mistake there. I want to say it meant judgment. So pass an adverse judgment on, or disapprove of strongly. That's what to condemn means. So it means judgment. But it says in John that the Father judges no man, but have committed all judgment unto the Son. Now, looking at the NIV, it's even more explicit, and it says, moreover, the Father judges no one, but has entrusted all judgments to the Son. Why does it say that all judgment is entrusted to the Son in John 5:22, yet in John 3:17 it says that God did not send his Son into the world to judge it? Why the contradiction? Please answer that for me, because I'm so seeking knowledge. This is the reason why, and this is one of the rationales that I give and follow my ebook that you can find on Amazon.com, that the slaves were given the Bible. I wouldn't say given, but were taught the Bible. They were taught the Bible. And they couldn't read it, because when you read something, you can actually decipher the information better than if you're listening to it. And so even within the Matrix environment today, we don't go really to read the Bible. We go to hear the Bible in church. But if you actually sat down to read it, if you really read it, and you really saw the contradictions that are in it, it would just blow your head off. It would. There's a difference when you hear something, right? The preacher just picks out a little scripture for you, makes you feel good about it. But yeah, when you really read this stuff, you're like, oh really, that's interesting. Okay, let's keep going. Matthew 12:39. An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. So it's saying right here in Matthew, if you're seeking a sign, about the end of the world and when, God's coming back, then you're an evil and adulterous generation. However, in the book of Acts, Acts 2, between the verses of 17 and 21, it says, and I will shew wonders in heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. Then the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great day of the Lord come. Wouldn't, blood and fire and vapor of smoke be a sign? But it just said in Matthew 12:39 that an evil and adulterous generation seeketh after a sign. I wonder if someone's going to have the courage to really respond to that comment on this video. Please do. Also, if you're any preachers out there, please enlighten me. I'm sure you can blow my mind. So anywho, let's keep going. And really, to be honest with you, there's really no reason to keep going. To be honest with you, there's just so many of them. And associating A Course in Miracles with the Bible and how it actually gives contradictions. Like, for example, the one that I really would like preachers and, you know, my Christians out there, I have one for you. Okay? Let's see if anybody can comment about this one. So Exodus chapter 20:14 reads, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." Right? You know what adultery is, right? You know, if you cheat on your wife or your husband. At least that's what I was taught what adultery is in the Matrix. Thou shalt not commit adultery. However, Deuteronomy 28:30 says, you know, basically the Lord's saying, if you don't obey my commandments, guess what I'm going to do? Wait for it. Thou shalt betroth a wife and another man